Hey, what's happening, everybody? Welcome to Midwest Sagacity. I'm Midwest Savage, and we're going to go ahead and take a look at some of the side effects and health problems people are having in East Palestine, Ohio. We're also going to take a look at what is the EPA saying about the air quality in the water there versus independent testing, not bought out by Norfolk. Are they going to be the same? Let's get into it.
At least 6 shots from inside the building.
I mean, what do we got to do?
Parties are running out.
What is it that we can say to get people to wake up?
I'd like to begin today by updating you on our efforts to recover the debris. China has a high-altitude balloon program for intelligence control. The president also instructed the intelligence community to take a broad look at the phenomenon of unidentified aerial objects.
Fema is now sending its team to East Palestine, Ohio. This comes more than 2 weeks after the train derailment threatened the
Reminds me of stuff that just happens at work. Just one person after another not doing their damn job, and everything would be okay if everyone just did their damn job. All right, guys, we're going to jump right into the video, but before we do, I want to give a big shout out to my mom. Thanks for supporting me. Thanks for helping me find these videos, and thanks for always being there for me. I really appreciate it. Now let's go.
I've been losing my voice off and on. My lungs burn. I feel like I can't catch my breath. Strong nausea, vomiting, rash, and had all the blood work and everything done.
This is your pulmonary fibrosis, but it looks like it's gotten worse, right?
Yeah, since this accident's come back, I've had some kind of reaction. I think the real problem's going to be 5-10 years from now.
I get all congested in my chest, and I just cough and cough and cough.
We're just not getting the same care.
And it seems to be the case, and you'll find out why here in just a second. You know, they're telling them one thing, and another's actually true. So let's keep going.
It's been just about 1 month since the Ohio train derailment, and residents in East Palestine are still dealing with the fallout.
And despite saying it was safe to drink the water, the EPA now warning residents to stay out of creeks.
So the EPA is saying that everything's okay, it's all right, it's not that bad. And let's take a look at this. This is from Texas A&M Superfund Research Center for Atmospheric Particle Studies. And I guarantee if I look up a lot of these chemicals, they're going to be terrible. Let's keep going.
And streams, as a new report reveals, higher levels of 9 potentially toxic pollutants in the air.
Yeah, you got to wonder what's going on. Governor Mike DeWine does too. He was on the ground just 24 hours ago and's been there from day one, from the first minutes, it seems. Governor, I know you hurt your...
Now, I know they said that, but we'll find out here pretty soon. He hasn't been there since day one, minute one. So,
thanks for playing hurt for us. We appreciate it. But you can imagine how the people of East Palestine feel when the experts from Texas A&M and Carnegie Mellon University conduct their own air quality tests using mobile test unit in East Palestine, and it goes against what the EPA is saying, that the air quality is safe. They say chemicals persist in the current levels, causing long-term health issues for residents. If you're a resident there, who do you believe?
Well, I asked the EPA that question as soon as that story came out, and here's what their answer was, and it seems to me to make very good sense.
oh, this should be good.
Look, you've got an elevation of some of these, which they believe is clearly going to be temporary. What they tell us is that for the short term, this is no problem, should not be a problem. If that persists for year after year and people continue to breathe that, yes, it would in fact be a problem. So look, we're doing everything that we can.
Now, that is just a bullshit statement. You know, from all the research that I've done, acute exposure to this stuff, one, is immediate health problems. And very small amounts of this vinyl chloride, being exposed to that for just hours a day, can have long-term effects, especially on your liver. To say that short-term, not that big a deal, long-term, you're not going to be breathing this in, forever, yeah, then you would have problem. No, that's not how that stuff works. That stuff is super toxic. It's a mutagen. It damages chromosomes. That's all the way down to the DNA. You're just like nuclear radiation, cancer causing. It's a carcinogen. It's a mutagen. To sit here and say something like that, that's just bullshit. Let's keep going.
To monitor the air. We're monitoring the water. As far as the drinking water and the creeks, I think we have to make a distinction. Drinking water is coming from wells way down the ground. We did we're testing the 5 wells that provide water for the people in the village. We're testing those every single week. We tested again yesterday, announced the results. The results were.
And see, that is just another bullshit statement. You don't think all that stuff laying on the ground is going to seep into the wells in the groundwater when it rains? That's just common sense. That stuff's going to get in there. And now it might be filtered out and hopefully diluted enough by the time it gets there, but it's still getting in there.
Good. Fran and I, my wife and I, were there and looking at this whole production of what is going on. It's hundreds of people who are, trying to clean up this mess. They're working on it. They're doing a very, very good job. As far as the creeks, the creeks that are closest to.
You know what I don't understand? No one's building anything out there. And I guarantee they're not operating any heavy equipment around the governor. So what the hell are they wearing hard hats for? Gee, what? Like, all gotta be for show, ain't it? All gotta be for show. Gee.
Where the derailment was still are impacted, and there's absolutely no doubt about that. And what they're doing is working on those. They're worried about what they have to deal with in the long run is the settlement. So you have to go in and stir that stuff up and keep pulling it out and pulling it out. So this is a long-term process. But I want to go to something, if I could, that several of the people said that you.
Yeah, I want to go to something too real quick. I was just wondering, do you think that all the people that grew up in that town and all the kids that play around in that area, you think they were running around in the creek down there with some hard hats on? What the hell? I don't get it. Like, I don't get it. What are they wearing hard hats for?
You just interviewed. They're absolutely right. This has to be dealt with on a long-run basis. We have, for the immediate help, health clinic that we have set up that anybody can go to, whether they have insurance, don't have insurance, whether they have a primary care doctor or not. They can get examined. They can be dealt with there, help there, but then they will be put either with their own physician, or we will find them a physician, somebody who is going to be their health provider. I think where this clearly goes in the long run, to assure people that their concerns about the long run will in fact be taken care of a year from now, 5 years from now, 10 years from now.
Wait, what do they need that for if everything's fine and they're not going to be breathing this stuff in for year after year, and there's not going to be any health problems because it's all short term? What do they need that for? That's interesting, because if they don't need it, well, then are you just making them put together a fund so that later on you make everybody who has a problem, you make them jump through a bunch of red tape stuff, and then it's almost near impossible. They have to get a lawyer and everything to even get a hold of any of that money. You make them jump through all that red tape like you do Social Security and disability. Have to hire a lawyer to get, what you paid into. If it doesn't get used, then where's it go? Set up a fund, and then they make people jump through a whole bunch of red tape to try to get a hold of a piece of that fund after they were all affected. And then you find out the money was used to build a new shopping mall and paid for, but it's owned by somebody else, but it's paid for by the state. Just stupid stuff like that.
we're going to have to end up with a fund, and the railroad is going to have to establish that fund in conjunction with officials. Ultimately, that will be, supervised by a court. But that's where this eventually goes, because
Again, why are you predicting that if there are no problems? Why are you predicting that?
that's the big concern that people have, is the long run. How are they going to take care of themselves?
Governor, what confidence do you have that the railroad is going to live up to that?
I don't get that. What was that, just for the cameras? That was a dumbass question. For one, he already said it's going to go to the courts, right? That's how they're going to have to live up to that end of the bargain, right? So I don't get what that question was even for. Are you supposed to be a professional journalist? Like, what the hell were you asking? Why would you ask that question?
Well, look, first of all, they've been sued a number of times, so you're ultimately going to be in federal court. The railroad, while I didn't think they were as cooperative as they could have been the first, 24, 48 hours, and that's another story.
That is the story. Yeah, I would say they were more than uncooperative.
But after that, as far as paying bills, they paid every bill that we've submitted to them, or that, to our knowledge, has been submitted. But eventually, it's going to have to go into a very significant fund. We're talking about millions of dollars.
Yeah, so I guarantee they wouldn't be paying every bill like this if the media finally wouldn't have picked it up. It took them probably over 10 days to start picking this story up. And other than that, it was mainly independent journalists, smaller news stations, local news stations, and China that was making this trend. I mean, officials didn't even get there for over 2 weeks. FEMA didn't get there for 2 weeks. So Norfolk wouldn't be paying any of that hadn't the news media finally picked it up. They would have just swept it under the rug like they did their other 111 accidents they had last year, as well as BNSF's 179 accidents last year. But you didn't hear about all those, did you?
And they're going to have to do that. If they won't do that voluntarily, to answer your question, it will be done in court. So there's just, if you look at what has happened in other rail and other big environmental disasters, some much bigger than this, it always goes to a fund, and that's how you protect people. And what I tell the people in East Palestine, that ultimately is what is going to be there for you in 5 years.
I have not seen many environmental disasters that would be classified as bigger than this on American soil. Now, if you want to say like the BP spill, sure, that was terrible. That was bad. That was in the ocean. It wasn't on land. The fertilizer plant that blew up in Texas a few years back, nowhere near as bad as this. This is way worse. This chemical is way worse. And I think the explosion was probably just about as big. So I can't think of another, maybe it's that Nordstrom gas pipe that blew up in the ocean that they sabotaged. Maybe that's what they're talking about, right? We'll have to get into that one time.
10 years, 15 years from now.
Terrorists attacked New York City with 9/11. We saw the fallout of that with the air quality as well. But those were terrorists we were blaming. This is an American company. The experts are saying this never should have happened, and now it's affecting the lives. They can buy bottled water. A lot of bottled water is being donated, but they have to breathe the air, and they can't move. They can't afford to stay in a hotel for the rest of their lives. They can't move because no one's going to buy their houses now. It's just such a disaster. It's devastating for these families. Governor, thank you so much. Thanks for being out there with the residents.
Governor, I just have one question for you. Congressman Bill Johnson came out and says, President Biden, come down here. 5,000 Americans who call this little small Appalachian town home. You pride yourself in your lunch bucket nickname and tout your blue-collar Scranton, Pennsylvania roots. Mr. President, there's nowhere more blue-collar than here. Come down and see it. Do you believe he should come down and see it? And are you offended he hasn't?
Look, he should come. There's no doubt about it. The president needs to come. The people want to see the president. He should be there.
Why, when you talk to him, does he tell you why he's not coming?
Well, last time I talked to him, actually, he was in Poland, so he called me directly. I've talked to him several times. I do talk to the White House, on issues, things that we're trying to get done. But no, I just think now is the time. The president needs to come, and it's just important. I've been there 4 times. I was there within a matter of 2 days after.
So not day one. Took a couple days to get there. Now, could you tell me, if I was Ohio, I'd be pissed. What the hell was more important during those 2 days than that disaster? Why wasn't he there? I mean, he didn't have to, go sit in the smoke, but he should have been down there allocating resources and making sure they had what they needed to get this thing put out as quickly as possible and make sure everyone was doing what they were supposed to be doing. What was more important in those 2 days for him to be there? Now, granted, I give him props. Took a lot of other officials 2 weeks to get there. But, man, I'd be pissed. I would be pissed. 2 days. It ain't like he had to, go by horse and buggy to get there. So what took so long? Do you think he had some health concerns?
After it occurred, our people have been on the ground since, 2 hours after it started. I will say that, the U.S. EPA was there. They were there about the same time our people got there. We've had our health department, our EPA there. So
yeah, so he sent his people, but not him.
We're there, and the message to people in the community is we're staying. We're not going away. We're staying with you. We're going to continue to work on this problem.
All right, Governor Mike DeWine, keep us updated if the president calls.
Thank you.
He says he represents all the American people.
All right, so that came out yesterday, March 2nd. Now let's take a look at this video that came out 5 days ago where all the alphabet soup officials were there giving an update on all the tests that they conducted and what the air quality and water quality was in East Palestine, Ohio. You had Fema there, you had CERT, you had CDC, EPA, and Ohio EPA all there patting each other on the back and saying everything was okay, along with, it seems to be what the governor's also sticking with, is what these officials said at the time. So let's go ahead and take a look at this video. This is the part where you might want to go ahead and grab a snack, get yourself a drink, and maybe a hard one, because it's going to be a little bit longer video. I was going to chop it up, but I think it's important that you guys see what these officials were saying compared to that report that came out from Texas A&M Research Center just yesterday. So let's take a look and see what they were saying, and they're still sticking to. Go ahead and grab your snack. Go ahead, I'll wait. On a disappearing away background. Oh, yeah. Oh, you ready? Oh, let's roll.
For sure, I'm the regional administrator for EPA Region 5. Thanks for joining us today. I'd like to start off with a few operational updates that demonstrate the progress that's being made to support the community in East Palestine. EPA has conducted 574 home re-entry screenings to date and continues air monitoring at 15 stations within the community. I'm pleased that there have been no exceedances for residential air quality standards, and outdoor air quality remains normal.
Well, that's kind of weird and awkward. Do you remember this?
And despite saying it was safe to drink the water, The EPA now warning residents to stay out of creeks and streams as a new report reveals higher levels of 9 potentially toxic pollutants in the air.
Yeah. I don't know how you square that circle.
We will continue to offer the air screening to any resident within the evacuation zone who wants a screening. Yesterday, we set up a new information hotline. It's posted on EPA's website, and the number is 866-361-0526.
Yeah, just, give us a call. We'll set you straight.
FEMA, which has broad and deep experience running call centers, will staff this call center. And those answering the phones will have information to share with callers. And when they don't have answers, they'll provide contact information so EPA can follow up. I'm excited to share that residents and business owners will be able to begin the intake process for scheduling cleaning services. Finally, EPA and other responding agencies will participate in a public meeting and open house.
Hold on. What do you need to schedule cleaning services for if the air and the water quality is just fine? What do you need cleaning services for?
On Thursday, March 2nd at 6 p.m. at the high school. I also want to address some of the reports you may have been seeing regarding disposal of contaminated waste. Yesterday, we instructed Norfolk Southern to pause shipping waste off-site until February 24th, until yesterday.
So over 3 weeks, they let Norfolk try to clean up their own mess under wraps. I mean, this toxic waste that they were shipping off was being sent down to a plant in Texas and a plant in Michigan of all places. I guess they figured their water was bad enough already. It didn't really matter.
Norfolk Southern had been solely responsible for the disposal of waste generated by the East Palestine train derailment. The company supplied Ohio EPA with their list of selected and utilized disposal facilities on February 23rd. Moving forward, waste disposal plans, including disposal location and transportation routes for contaminated waste, will be subject to federal EPA review and approval. EPA will ensure that all waste is disposed of in a safe and lawful manner.
You know, I thought the Ohio EPA was there to begin with, so why wasn't this done in the first place? Why was this being shipped off to Texas and Michigan if the EPA was, as the governor said, down there within a few hours? It's a weird
At
statement.
EPA certified facilities to prevent further release of hazardous substances and impacts to communities. I've been able to visit East Palestine multiple times since the derailment. I've had a chance to meet with Mayor Conaway and to talk to other residents. And one thing that's been made clear to me is that everyone wants this contamination gone from the community. They don't want the worry and they don't want the smell. And
What the hell? How can there be a smell if all the air quality tests are good? How can there be a smell? For there to be a smell, there has to be enough of the chemical in the air for you to smell it. If you can smell it, that's too much of the chemical in your body. This doublespeak just blows my mind. I don't get it. Like, how do people not pick up on this? They just throw a bunch of ramble out there, I think, and it just confuses people. No wonder it's so hard to figure out the truth about anything, because they tell you that it's fucked while telling you that it's not. And you're supposed to somehow discern from what they're saying whether you're screwed or not. Unbelievable.
We owe it to the people of East Palestine to move it out of the community as quickly as possible. At EPA, we have decades of experience dealing with hazardous waste, both from cleaning up contaminated sites to regulating the landfills where it's disposed of. And we know it's far better to have it safely stored in a properly constructed and monitored disposal facility than to have it remain here any longer than necessary when there are licensed, regulated disposal facilities available that routinely dispose of similar wastes. At the same time, I know there are folks in other states with concerns, legitimate concerns, about how this waste is being transported and how it will be disposed of. EPA will continue to work with our local, state, and federal partners to use our long-standing experience and expertise in these matters to ensure the health and safety and support the East Palestine community and to hold Norfolk Southern accountable. Thank you. And now over to Ann Vogel of Ohio EPA.
Good afternoon. I am Ann Vogel, Director of the Ohio EPA. And I just want to say once again, thank you to the residents of East Palestine. Thank you for continuing to share your concerns with us and ask good questions, to educate yourself on the science. I've had really good conversations. I want to thank the mayor and the chief who have been just as solid as it comes in terms of representing their town, looking out for the residents here. And they've been a pleasure to work with and really digging in on the cleanup and what it's going to take, right, to make East Palestine a great comeback, as the sign out front says. I love that. So, a couple quick.
Yeah, I don't know if they're coming back from this one. That community's destroyed. No one's ever going to buy property there. No businesses are going to come in there and say, hey, yeah, I'm going to start a business in a town that just has mutagen just floating around in the air. It doesn't even matter if it's not to the levels that are even harmful. No one's just going to want to be in that area. No one's going to want to buy property. Hell, half the town's probably going to move out to not be around that crap.
Updates on the cleanup front. If you have been anywhere near the derailment site in a while, it's definitely looking better. You can see dirt being hauled, liquids being stored, hauled off and stored. You can see the scrap being removed. That's all, again, part of that initial phase of emergency response. So we're moving into the remediation phase. We're cleaning up sulfur, we're cleaning up Leslie Run. You can see that work underway with the aeration, with the pumps. You can see the new Sentinel wells that were drilled near the municipal well field. Those are monitoring wells. We will be able, for years to come, to know if there are any contaminants approaching the municipal well field. So that's part of that long-term, that early detection system that's going to protect this community for years to come. So I appreciate this opportunity. On behalf of the governor, I want to say stay strong.
Probably just drilled that contaminated dirt right into the well field.
Listen to the science. There's a lot of good information out there on the website. The governor's commitment to you, the people of East Palestine, has been, we will be transparent, we will stay here, we will be here as long as it takes to clean it up. Thank you very much. And I'm going to turn it over to my friend Lydia Mihalik.
Nice job, Director Vogel. Well, good afternoon. My name's Lydia Mihalik. I'm Director of the Ohio Department of Development. Over the last day or so, I have had the pleasure and opportunity to meet with many of East Palestine's local officials, business owners, as well as...
Sure did get those trains running, though, didn't they? Oh, that couldn't be better timing.
As residents. And I got to tell you that despite the horrible situation that this community has had to deal with I've been so impressed by the resolve of each person that I have encountered to see their community through this absolute ordeal. Mayor Conaway and Chief Dravik, each of you are doing a tremendous job representing your community and advocating for East Palestine. I also want to say thank you and commend the workers who have been on site, as well as our first responders who have been.
You know, all those officials are just cringing inside with that train horn going off. You know, they're just cringing.
Working tirelessly on this cleanup and the efforts that are being undertaken to restore East Palestine. And while certainly there is a lot of work left to do here, I can tell you that based on what I have seen, a lot of progress has been made and the recovery of this very vibrant community is underway. To that end, Governor DeWine, Lieutenant Governor Husted, and our team at the Department of Development are here for the long run. And we're going to do all that is necessary to help the people and the businesses in this community to get back to life as they knew it before this accident. A lot of information has been disseminated over the last several weeks for residents that need assistance, but we also want to make sure that our businesses are getting the help that they need. So for any business owners who have questions or need help, please contact our team at businesshelp@development.ohio.gov. Again, that's businesshelp@development.ohio.gov. We're here to help.
Hey, you gonna need that help.
So at this point, I'm going to turn it over to Regional Administrator Thomas Seebeck. Thank you very much.
Thank you, Director Mahalik. I want to take a moment to echo the sentiments and recognize this is an incredibly difficult time for
I don't think this guy has much important to say, so we're going to go ahead and skip over that. Like he said, he's just echoing the sentiments of the rest of the people, so we don't need to hear that. Let's go to
Thank you.
This lady.
From overall. And with that, I'm going to turn over to Captain Seeger from the CDC.
Thank you very much. Good afternoon, everybody. My name is Captain Jill Sugart, and it is an honor to be here serving as the CDC ATSDR East Palestine team. Thank you very much for the Ohio Department of Health and the Pennsylvania Department of Health as well for their invitation to try to help out on this very important mission. And it's also an honor to join our colleagues at EPA and Fema as unified command for this mission. We're here, we have a 19-person multidisciplinary scientific team. We really are focusing on our assessment of chemical exposure survey. We are planning to do some surveys in coordination with our local, state, and federal partners both to get some more information from residents, businesses, and also potentially impacted first responders. Today, we were able to join the on-the-ground teams and really got a very warm reception from the community. Again, we're happy to be here to try to learn a little bit more information about any potential health effects that may have occurred to individuals as a result of this incident. Tomorrow, we will also be working closely with the Pennsylvania Department of Health to conduct another ACE survey to get additional information. We also are looking forward to being present on Monday at the EPA Welcome Center, where we'll have additional health education materials, and we'll also be staffing that with some of our scientists to help answer any questions. So with that, again, it's really an honor to be here.
Did you all hear the question? It has to do with the removal of contaminated waste off the derailment site. We have instructed Norfolk Southern to pause, but only temporarily. We've been working throughout the day to identify sites that are CERCLA approved and can accept that waste, and very soon they'll be moving again to those sites.
Why didn't that happen before they even started removing waste?
Well, as I said earlier, federal EPA did not assume command of the entire program until the 24th.
Yeah, that's a good question. Why did it take 21 days for them to assume command? And why is it called a mission and they're in command? That sounds ominous.
Due to the unilateral administrative order that our agency issued on Tuesday of this week.
So, but does that mean they were not working with contractors they should have? Like, why did they need to stop? Clearly they weren't up to your standards, it sounds like.
No, I believe that all the facilities were up to the standards that were in place prior to the unilateral order.
So there's some doublespeak there, right there. Man, I hate that. So no, they were in compliance with what was required up until we put out our order. So it wasn't up to their standards. So that's why they told them to stop, obviously.
But we did hear from residents who were concerned and others in a number of states, and we're reviewing the transport of some of this waste over long distances and finding the appropriate permitted and certified sites to take the waste, as we do with other contaminated sites all the time around the country.
So it's just your team doing a check now that you've taken control? Is that a fair way to characterize it? It's your team, now that your team is in control, you're checking, you're doing your own due diligence?
That's right, and we're working hand in hand with Ohio EPA on this, and it's following under the unified command that was established by that unilateral order.
Okay. Next question. What is the regional EPA's position on that controlled burn? I mean, did it add risk? To the people, for the people.
Yeah, what a great question. What was the EPA's take on the controlled burn or bombing of a town?
What they were exposed to. I mean, does anyone here plan to examine that decision-making process?
That decision was made by the local officials and a variety of state officials. It wasn't made by EPA, but
the EPA was there though, right? Wouldn't they have said, no, you cannot do this, right?
Certainly it was a well-founded decision based on the information they had available at the time to deal with a highly explosive toxic chemical.
And what's your position on it, being that, seeing that these, talking about the short-term and long-term effects here?
We haven't seen any short-term effects, and we're continuing to monitor for sure, and we will be here. And
what do you mean you've seen no short-term effects? People are complaining about having lung problems, rashes, headaches. What do you mean you've seen no short-term effects?
Until the residents of the larger community of East Palestine say that they're ready to see us go.
Researchers at Texas A&M took the EPA's own data and determined there are indeed elevated levels of toxins that could cause damage over the long term. Is that in contrast to what we've heard to this point, and what's your response to that?
I'm not familiar with the analysis of that data. I'm happy to have a look at it.
And that was this. Wow. And see, I didn't know at first that they had taken it from the EPA's own results. So they're sitting here telling everybody that everything's fine and there's elevated levels of all these chemicals.
And give you a response.
Question for State EPA. Huffington Post is reporting that your department and the governor's office deemed the drinking water in this community to be safe. only relying on data provided by a testing company that was contracted by Norfolk Southern. Wondering if you could comment on.
Yeah, that is a great question as well. Man, I like these reporters.
That is in fact the case.
Happy to. Thanks for the question. The governor's statement that the municipal water was safe, which is what the mayor was also saying the whole time, it was backed up by lots of data. There was the Norfolk Southern had a contractor that did testing. That test was split sampled. A sample was also taken by the county. Those county results are final. They are posted on the county's website. Ohio EPA took tests starting this week. We will test weekly the municipal water. Those tests are also posted on our website. Those results, I'm sorry. In addition, though, I want to be clear that there was a weight of evidence that the municipal water was safe. It is not in the path of the contamination from the derailment. So it was.
How do you know? I mean, all that stuff was just getting thrown in the air, and there was fallout from it as well.
There was a lot of science, and so no, I don't agree.
But when the determination was made, when the governor publicly said the municipal drinking water is safe, at that point, did your department have anything back other than the Norfolk Southern funded data?
I apologize, I don't know the exact timeline.
Of course. They never know, do they? They never know. Wow. That's always the answer every single time. Sorry about the fat fingered a button. Sorry, guys. But wow, every single time it's, I don't have the exact time. I'm not sure about the report you're talking about. Get the man.
When we got the county's preliminary data as well, but we also knew based on where the well field is and how the groundwater flows that the well would not have been in the path of contamination.
I understand the path issue, but if you can't answer that definitively, doesn't that mean you don't know that to be the case?
I hope you guys heard that. So he said, if you didn't have the test results and you don't know that definitively, then how can you say that?
Yeah, question for the CDC. We're hearing about reports of, I believe, chemical laryngitis. I'm just curious if you have any updates on that and what the symptoms are of what people might be experiencing that you've seen so far.
Sure. So I cannot confirm any of those reports, but I think that's why it's so important that we're trying to get our ACE survey out. This is a survey that will allow us to collect information from residents about some of the symptoms.
Hey, but how are there any symptoms if there's no short-term effects that they've seen? I mean,
That they are experiencing, along with some demographic information, and whether they were in
the hell do you need demographic?
In the area during the incident, whether they evacuated, and what we can do is take a look at all of that information and analyze it to see if there's any health concerns.
Lauren Ledger from KDKA and CBS Pittsburgh. Can you try to explain, obviously, we're hearing the air quality is safe, we're hearing the water quality is safe, but people are still getting sick. Obviously, there's some people who are having these chemical bronchitis. There's animals who are getting sick. Can you explain why people may be getting sick, but these quality and readings are showing safe levels?
So we do we do understand that there were a lot of hazardous materials that were spilled at the incident. However, we really need to look a little bit more at the data. We're working very closely with our federal partners at.
Who gives a fuck about data? Like it's always about numbers. Like even at jobs these days, bosses just looking at numbers and think they know what's happening in the real world. The reality is people are feeling sick after this. Now, to sit here and try to say that we need to look at the numbers. Oh, so that means you have to go by your test to see if the air quality would be at a state that would actually affect people. Until you can actually see those numbers, you're not believing it. Get out of here.
At EPA, as they are leading those efforts on the air, the water, and the soil, and we're taking a look at that from a health perspective. Just today, we were out giving information to the community on if they did have any symptoms that they were concerned about, what they could do. They could call their doctor, they could make an appointment at the health assessment clinic, and also fill out this survey.
But how is all that declared safe if people are getting sick?
So again, we are continuing to monitor the situation and can provide public health recommendations as needed depending on those results.
Yes, ma'am. I'm a reporter with KBN in Youngstown. I know a lot of people in Pennsylvania and also in Ohio, Jared Brown, have expressed concerns about dioxins. Are we doing anything long term to look at the possibility of those and if so, potentially mitigate that?
Administrator Schultz.
We did receive a letter from Senator Brown and Senator Vance. Our toxicologists are taking a look. Unfortunately, we don't have any baseline information about the levels of dioxins, which are produced also by wildfires, by backyard grilling, by a host.
Yeah. Man, this just makes you want to choke somebody. All these animals dying. Over 50,000 they've estimated so far. All these fish. Oh my. Backyard grills. I gotta imagine there's been no wildfires there. I haven't heard about any. Maybe I'm wrong. Let me know down in the comments if I am. But for someone that is just insulting. Straight up insulting. Oh, these are just, caused by backyard grills. And man, this is what we pay for with our tax money.
Host of other things. We have been looking at a series of tests, but at the moment we're not testing precisely for dioxins, but we may in the future.
Yeah, why wouldn't you though? Why wouldn't you if everything's dying off? Come on.
Okay, two more. Yes, sir.
This question is for anyone who has spoken with local residents in the past few days. We've had a lot of high-ranking governmental officials over the past few days, Trump, Vance, etc. Do the residents around here feel like their presence made a positive impact, or do they feel better about the situation here with those
Good afternoon. Yes, from what I'm understanding, the residents feel that, there was a positive impact. I think the residents have a concern that this is a political chess game, as I've mentioned multiple times. But I think they want to be noticed, and, with the public officials coming in, I think we are being noticed, so yes.
Question for the Federal Railroad Administrator during the talk prior. I think that we probably all want to hear from you. Can you explain when the last track maintenance was on this railroad, and as well as why was Norfolk Southern about to replace the tracks without removing the soil?
Can you repeat that again?
When was the last maintenance for these tracks before the derailment, and also why was Norfolk Southern able to remove and replace the tracks and start going before removing the soil?
I'd have to look at their records, to find out when they did the last capital program on here, where they come through and do track maintenance, and make sure everything's within compliance of the federal railroad regulations. But when a derailment happens, they come in and they do a massive cleanup, and they put panels in there to get the tracks back into service so they can start running trains again.
But why wasn't the soil removed first and dealt with before getting these tracks back up and running?
Because it's
money, 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 money. Nothing else to say.
I don't know. I mean, it's not part of the plan on remediating the derailment and all stuff. So now, you know, they did all that remediation. Now they're going to come back in and probably do a full-fledged capital program to redo everything.
Who is responsible for putting those tracks back in place?
Norfolk Southern.
Okay, so they put it back in place with your permission?
No, the Federal Railroad Administration is just safety. You know, we come out and monitor the railroads all across the country, you know, for safe operation, and they're in compliance with all the federal regulations that they fall under.
Mayor, what kind of testing data was shared with you prior to the governor announcing that the municipal water in the community was safe? Because just again, going back to what I was asking, the state EPA, it sounds like it wouldn't be an automatic need to have non-railroad data before making that determination.
The data that was shared with me was all tests performed by CTEC, and there was data shared through our county health department. They all worked together before that was deemed safe. So the Ohio Department of Health was in that decision too. It wasn't just the governor's office. So everybody, Dr. Vander Hoff, he was part of that decision making too. It was made as a team, and then it was put out.
So you saw government data independent from the railroad's data on the drinking water.
Absolutely, it was a split sample. So, and we have our own in-house samples too. So we had those prior to that too. So,
thank you.
All right, I think we're done. Thank you.
Thank you, everybody.
Man, I don't know about you, but some of that was just infuriating. Just the double speak and the contradictory evidence is just, it's mind blowing.
The prophecy is true.
These people could just dismiss anybody that's not them speaking, right? Let's go ahead and go to this last video. Sorry, this is a long one, guys, but I think I needed to give this all in sequence so that you guys could kind of see what really is going on. This is a video of a person who lives in East Palestine and kind of what they've been dealing with since the disaster. So let's go ahead and take a look.
Ohio, Russell Murphy. Russell, we really enjoyed our interview with you, but Russell, we're worried about you and your neighbors. You are suffering physically from this toxic train crash, and your pets are suffering too?
Yeah, it's been quite an eye-opening experience, that's for sure. The wife and I both. And then some latest news, my daughter, she drives back and forth to YSU, and today she come home and she said she wasn't feeling all that good, and she said she kind of feels confused a little bit, like she was driving, but she kind of almost like she's lost track of time a little bit. So that's a new one. But the wife and I are still dealing with sore throats. The daughter has a sore throat today. We're still trying to get some answers. The health clinic that my wife and I reached out to and went.
So, but, you know, in the last video, there have been no short-term effects, right? They haven't seen any. There's a lot of people saying these same things that live there.
And they collected their data and give you a referral. And the referral ended up being my wife's PCP that she went to on Friday. And that doctor refused to do a blood panel or a urinalysis. He said that he wouldn't do it. He's going to treat her for a sinus infection. And if she wanted to get blood work, he said, go to the ER.
What kind of doctor is that? That's just mind blowing. Why would a doctor not want to do a blood test for his own knowledge of other patients coming in as well to see if there's anything in their blood? Why would he not want to? That's just crazy. I would fire that guy immediately.
And unfortunately, that's a $250 copay. But at this point, I think, we're going to have to do something if we can't get some answers.
This is shocking and it's disturbing that you guys are suffering like this. And it feels like they're just getting data collection out of you guys and no help. That you and your neighbors or in your family are being ignored. The White House is emailing the media a timeline of the administration response, and the president said he's been doing Zoom calls instead of going. He also said, quote, there was not a request from East Palestine for him to go. When you hear that, what's your reaction?
Oh, it's infuriating. I know it was last night on an interview that President Biden did, and both my wife and I, our eyebrows raised when he said we were there within 2 hours. I don't know who we is, but it took Buttigieg, 2.5 to 3 weeks to get here. And if Biden was here, I think it would just take time away from the cleanup, because I don't think he could walk on the gravel. You'd have to get him a walker. So for him coming here, it's just a photo op now.
Yeah, but this is the worst. What?
I like this guy. That's funny.
One of the worst rail disasters in U.S. history historically.
But the governor said there's been much worse disasters.
Presidents do go to disaster sites of this magnitude. Let's watch President Biden here.
Are you planning to travel to East Palestine, Ohio? Not. I did a whole video. What the hell?
Does this guy know where he's at? And does he know that he's not just an NPC living on planet Earth?
Zoom. All I can, every time I think of Zoom, that song of my generation, who's zooming who? Wait, let me answer the question. The answer is that I had a long meeting with my team and what they're doing. We were there 2 hours after the train went down. 2 hours. I've spoken with every single major figure in both Pennsylvania and in Ohio. And so the idea that we're not engaged is just simply not there.
What? He was not there within 2 hours. He hasn't been there. Not once.
And initially there was not a request for me to go out, even before I was heading over to Kyiv.
Do you have any plan to travel to Ohio, and have you talked with the mayor yet?
Let's put this in perspective. Within 2 hours of that derailment, the EPA was in there. Within 2 hours.
So do you plan to travel there and have...
That was the local EPA, not the federal EPA.
You talked with the mayor?
Which I guess you could argue are all like one entity, but I guess you could blame the federal government for nuking the town then, can't you?
I can't recall whether I don't think I've talked to the mayor. I've talked to everyone else there, and multiple times.
It's unclear why the president is smiling in this interview, Russell. He needs an invitation from East Palestine to go. What would that invitation read? Dear Mr. President, we'd like to invite you to our toxic train derailment. Please RSVP by yesterday. I mean, what would it say? What do you make of all this?
If we wrote a letter, it'd be pretty simple. It would just say help. We need help. We're not required or able to deal with the situation that we have here in this small town. We need some major help. We need information. We can't even get that, on Friday.
Yeah, just conflicting stories from one side to the other. And, yeah, they don't even know the truth. They probably don't. I mean, unless one of these guys watched my video on how bad that stuff was that was rolling through their town, they probably don't even know.
Friday nights they can broadcast a high school football game on the radio, but we have nowhere to go to get current and updated information. It's a total it's a mess. They could write a book on what not to do.
Yeah,
and
go ahead, finish your thought.
Yeah, to quote President Biden, what the hell? Exactly.
they're finger pointing, House Oversight is probing Pete Buttigieg now on his alleged, for his apathy. He waited, to your point, 20 days to visit. But now the contamination fears are spreading. Other states, toxic waste in Michigan, in Texas, the hazardous waste facilities, they're seeing firsthand what you guys are now dealing with full on. So, when you see stories like that and you see the Washington Post fact checker Glenn Kessler say Trump deregulation cannot be blamed for the Ohio train derailment, you see the D.C. politics and the government response, in such magnitude right now. You were neighbors. What would you say if you were facing the president and Buttigieg right now?
Personal time, Pete should just put in his resignation because he's messed it up from day one. There was no other transportation disaster with millions of gallons of cancer-causing carcinogens running on the streets of East Palestine and in the waterways. I know in my job, I'd have got a pink slip.
Yeah, that sounds probably right. Russell Murphy, we thank you so much for coming on the show. We'll have you back on again soon.
Man, if you wrote a book, it could not be this good. It could not be this interesting. Fiction, nonfiction, doesn't matter. Stephen King couldn't write this shit. It's just amazing what is going on in the world and how our leaders are treating everyone like they are just low class. Now, let's say this happened in DC. What do you think the response would have been then? Or just outside of DC. Let's say it wasn't even going to affect DC, but still, you think the response would have been a lot different? I think so. Let's say it was in one of these senators' backyard. Would it have been different? Everyone needs to wake up and realize that there's no left, there's no right. They don't care. They just want that money. They want to keep themselves in power. And damn all you little people, you are just beneath me. You are ants to squash beneath my boots. That's how they see you. And that's how they'll treat you. Especially if you keep letting them. What's it gonna take to get people to wake up and stop putting up being treated as second-class citizens? Remember, all it takes is all you got.